All right, so today we're talking about surface area and volumes of prisms and pyramids. And you have some familiarity with this from elementary school, I know, but perhaps the words surface area and volume are new to you. So to think about gift wrapping a present, okay, the amount of gift wrapping paper it would take to cover your present, okay, that would be your surface area. Okay? How much you could actually fit inside the box, that would be the volume. Okay, and so they have different units and they have different understandings. So depending on the shape that you're looking at, the surface area and the volume is going to be different. So first, let's make sure we know how to identify shapes. A prism, if you remember, from way back, I know that you learned this in grade 2 because my daughter's learning all this stuff, is a three-dimensional object, okay? And it has two congruent and parallel bases. So, if we consider this here, what are two bases that are congruent or the same? If you imagine this side here, so this box over here, that's one base. And then behind on the back side, right, that would be another. I know it looks confusing, but those are two congruent bases. In the case of here, think of the one facing you here. Oh, I need to reorient. Okay, and then the other base would be the exact same thing except on the other side. So, like, oh, I need to recalibrate. Okay, that side. So those are both congruent, and those are both bases. Okay, and you also need to be able to identify lengths and widths and heights if you're going to use your formula sheet. So for this particular shape, a rectangular prism, you have length over here as indicated already. This would be your width, and then the height is this, or you could think of it as this. That would be your height. In the case of the triangular prism, you have to think of this as your height. If you look on your formula sheet, try and make the connection to that. This would be your A value from the formula, and if you draw a line that's perpendicular to that base there, so let's say that's 90 degrees, that would be your L. Okay, and the other side, this side, would be your C. And your B would be over here, this base, okay, the 4 centimeters would be your B. Okay, looking at different shapes now, pyramids. So pyramids are three-dimensional objects or shapes that have one base, not two, but all the faces of that base are going to meet at one point, the vertex, okay? So we're going to look at one example, actually. We're only going to look at the square-based pyramids. You can actually omit your triangular-based pyramids. We're going to eliminate these shapes, and you don't have to worry about those. But let's make sure that you can identify all the variables you would need in order to calculate area and surface area and volume. When you're looking at a square-based pyramid, you need to identify the S, or the slant. So to figure that out, if you could imagine this in 3D, okay, if that were the slant of that kind of, maybe think of it as a hill, okay, that is identified as S, okay, also known as slant. So you need to know that. You also need to know the height of the pyramid. And to get the height is from that tip all the way to its base. Okay, so whatever that base is, it's kind of hard to visualize. That would be the height from the tip to the base of the pyramid. Okay, and your B values are over here. So the base over here, okay, and then the base again over here. And then on the other sides as well, okay? So make sure you have a good understanding of how to identify those variables. All right, so in our first example, we're going to determine the volume and surface area. So what does the 5, the 4, and the 12 mean? Try and pause the video and put either the H, the W, and the L beside the right number to see if you did it right. So if you did it right, you should have selected the 4 as your height, because, well, yours is kind of tilted on your sheet, okay? If you think about it the way that it is on your sheet, your 4 is the height, the 5 is the width, and the 12 is the length, okay? And when you look at the equation to calculate volume, volume is going to be your length times your width times the height. So 12 times 5 times 4. Each of those has a unit of centimeter. So you end up with 240 centimeter cubed, because you have the 12 has a centimeter unit, a centimeter unit, a centimeter unit. So the volume units are cubed. To calculate your surface area, okay, the formula says that 2 times the width times the height plus 2 times the length times the width plus 2 times the length times the height. So pause the video and do that on your own to make sure you're getting the same answer. So you should have found the answer is 256 meters squared. The unit here is squared. Okay, think about why. Well, your width is in meters and your height is in meters. Meters times meters gives you meters squared. Then you're adding the meter squared to another meter squared. You're adding another meter squared to another meter squared. So your final answer should be in meters squared. That's important. Okay, so with example B, again, I want you to try and identify what H is, what L is, what B is, what A and C are on your diagram before you actually take a look. So try that on your own first. All right, you should have selected the 10 meter as your height, the 6 meter as your B, the 5 on either side here is your A and your C because they are the same. And the green label there is your L, okay? So I'm just going to take this, this right angle triangle here and just zoom it up over here, okay? So that you can see. So I'm just taking this and I'm zooming it, okay? So this would be your L, okay? This side would be your 5 meters. And because we know the base is altogether 6, this must be 3 meters, okay? Because it's a median from the vertex of that triangle there to the midpoint. And so we know that that is 3 meters. So if we need L to figure out the volume and surface area, that hopefully will show you that you now need to use the Pythagorean theorem. So go ahead and find L. All right, so I basically subbed L in as the A, right? That's my A value. This is my B value for the Pythagorean theorem, and this is my C. And so if you plug in everything correctly, you should end up with L being 4 meters, okay? And then I want you to now look at the equation for the volume of this shape. So that would be base B, L, H, all multiplied, then divided by 2. So V is going to equal 6, right? Times 4 times 10. All of that divided by 2. So V is 240 divided by 2. And so your final answer is 120 meters, what? Cubed or squared? What did we do? We had meters here, we had meters here, meters here, so it's going to be cubed. Okay? And for your surface area, to calculate your surface area, your equation says A times H plus B times H plus C times H plus B times L. Okay? Plugging all of that in gives me 5 times 10 plus 6 times 10 plus 5 times 10 plus 6 times 4. So you end up with 184 meters. What are the units going to be? Okay, I have meter times meter plus meter times meter. So that's going to be meter squared. Okay, for this example, I want you to again try and place the letter variable beside the number. So what's the S, what's the H, and what's the B? Pause the video, do that on your own. And if you come back, you find that your 12 is your H value, your 10 is your B value, and we don't have the S, right? We're not given the S. It would be this line over here, okay? But we don't know what it is. And if you try to zoom into that triangle, that will help us find S. So how are we going to find S? Pause the video and try and zoom out one of those triangles. So hopefully if you did that properly, if you can imagine this as your S, okay, and it had this base over here that had a total of 10, but that must be half of the 10. So you should determine that that is 5 meters. And we were given already that the height is 12, okay? So this height is 12 meters. So again, you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for S. All right, and so if you did that correctly, you should find that S is 13 meters. Okay? Once you have that, now you have all the variables you need to solve for volume and surface area. So again, pause, solve, calculate, and come back and check to see if you did it right. Okay, so you should have figured that the volume turns out to be 400 meters cubed if you plugged everything in correctly, and it is cubed. And your surface area using this equation, you should end up with 360 meters squared. For example 3, we're actually going to start this off, or start our lesson off with this tomorrow. And so give it a shot, find out what the answer is for the height, and bring it to class with you to check your work so it's not over here. Thanks for listening.